I'm going to tell you about the story, and I would ask you to imagine what you think will happen. Okay? So, the story comes from Kazakhstan. Not far away, really. I mean, there's Nepal, and if I go north for a few hours, by aeroplane, I guess, you come to Astana, the capital of Kazakhstan. And a few months ago, I was teaching a man called Marat Mukashev. And he works as an advisor in the president's office in Kazakhstan. And now, Marat is studying in the UK at the University of Exeter, where I work. And I met him, and he told me this story. And I love this story. So before and it's interesting because Marat is an advisor, and in the story there is an advisor. Okay. So in the story you've got a king, the king's advisor, who is also a powerful person. You have king, advisor, a barber. You know the barber?
Yeah.
What's his job? Yeah. And you've also got the seller of wisdom. The seller of wisdom. This is a person who sells wisdom. Can you buy wisdom?
No.
You cannot even sell this.
You can buy it. Yeah, you can sell it.
So this story is called The Seller of Wisdom. So the characters are king, advisor, barber, and the seller of wisdom. And the other important words in the story is, what do you use? What does a barber use on someone's beard? I think in an old story, they're using a blade, they're using a razor. So the razor is important in this story as well. Okay? So before I tell the story, please could you ask me questions to find out as much as you can about what happens in the story. You've only got 2 minutes. Okay? So could you ask me questions for 2 minutes? Actually, maybe I could ask Mr. Bryan. Mr. Bryan? Oh, he's busy. Mr. Bryan? Mr. Bryan, could you do me a favour? Could you time 2 minutes, please?
Sure, absolutely. Okay,
so tell me. So you've got 2 minutes to find out as much as you can, and after 2 minutes, Mr. Bryan will say stop. Okay, so put your hands up with your questions. Mr. Bryan's going to say go.
5, 4,
Put your hands up with your questions.
1, go.
Go. Right. Question.
Is there a moral to the story?
Yes, there's a moral to this story, and you will find out what the moral is.
Does anyone die?
Yes, somebody dies in the story.
Is there anything tragic?
Anything tragic?
Someone
Almost. There's almost something tragic in the story.
does somebody get a really bad haircut because of the Bible?
Nobody gets a bad haircut. No.
Or they die
No.
from it? Does the seller of wisdom sell his wisdom to the king?
Yes, the seller of wisdom sells his wisdom to the king.
Is there a sacrifice happening?
No. No. I like your thinking, but there isn't a sacrifice.
Is the king good or bad?
It's a good king. It's a good king.
Does everybody else want wisdom?
I think a lot of people want wisdom, but in the story it's the king who gets the wisdom, but also somebody else in the story gets wisdom as well.
So for normal folk tales, they have gods.
Quick question.
Are there any gods and stuff like that?
There's no gods in this story. No.
Is there conflict between the advisor and the seller of wisdom?
No, but there is a conflict between the advisor and someone else.
Is there any characters stuck in
Are any characters stuck in? Dilemmas. Sorry, yes. Yes, they are. Yes, actually a lot of the, 3 of the characters find themselves in a dilemma in the story. There is a villain. I wonder who the villain's going to be. Is that 2 minutes yet?
Not yet. 10 seconds.
Go on.
Is the advisor? Does the advisor try to buy wisdom?
2 minutes.
No, the advisor doesn't try to buy wisdom. It's the king who buys the wisdom. Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Wow, you asked fantastic questions. You've got so much information about this story. Turn to your partner and tell the story that you think I'm going to tell. You've got 3 minutes. What do you think is going to happen?
So there's the barber.
And what do you think is going to happen?
Barber's there. So I think the barber's the one who dies. The barber tries to die. No, it's the king who buys it.
He said the king and barber. You think that the seller of wisdom will buy it?
So like the barber, I think the barber gives it to somebody. The barber. I think the barber's all. Yeah. And he kills somebody while cutting his hair, and then the king gets no, and then the king punishes him to die. It's only the barber's own brain kills him. Something like that.
Because how does it has to be king? It has to be deep.
Could be related.
The barber's own brain.
Yeah, but then how does it involve the king?
Is that enough time?
Yeah.
I would love to hear all of your stories, but there isn't time for that. But what I will ask you to do is to listen to the story, and then afterwards be ready to compare the story that you imagine with the story that I tell. So this story I learned from Marat Mukashev from Kazakhstan, advisor to the president of Kazakhstan, and this is a story that he gave to me. Story.
Tell us a story.
Story?
Tell us a story.
Once upon a time there was a king, and this king sat at the window of his palace and looked down into the square below, and he saw that many people were gathering, hundreds of people, and he asked his advisor, "What's the meaning of this? Why are all these people gathering outside my palace?" "Oh," said the advisor, "there is a seller of wisdom, and everyone wants to buy his wisdom." "I want his wisdom," said the king. And he went out of the palace into the square, and he went up to the seller of wisdom and said, "Sell me some of your wisdom." "Who are you?" "Who am I? I'm the king." "Sell me some of your wisdom. Give me gold." So the king gave all the gold that he had to the seller of wisdom. And the seller of wisdom said, "Always think before you act. Never act before you think." "What should I do with this wisdom?" said the king. "Take it, and inside your palace write the words on the walls." The king went into his palace and he wrote the words on the walls. "Always think before you act. Never act before you think." Well, a few days later, his advisor came to him and said, "Oh, great king, your beard is growing. It is time for you to have a shave. I will call for the barber." The king agreed. And when the barber came, well, the barber was not a rich man. The barber came, and at the door of the palace, the advisor greeted him and said, "Show me the razor that you will use to shave the king." And the barber took out his razor. "What, this?" said the advisor. "This old razor with a wooden handle? The king deserves better than this." "It is a good razor," said the barber. "I have always shaved the king with this razor before. I sharpen its blade, I know it well." "No," said the advisor. "I have a new razor for you." And he gave him a razor of shining gold. It sparkled beautifully. The barber took the golden razor and went up the stairs to the king's room, and the king was already seated and waiting. Shave me. The barber was about to begin. He stood there for a long time. I said, shave me, said the king. And the barber put down the golden razor on the table. And he took out his old razor with a wooden handle. And he began to shave the king. Wait, said the king. What's this? You have a golden razor, and a golden razor is surely fit for a king, and yet you are shaving me with this old razor with a wooden handle. And the barber said, I am sorry. But before I began, I saw the words written on your walls.
Always think before you act. Never act before you think.
And when I saw these words, I thought, this golden razor, I do not know its secrets. But my old razor I have always used before. I can trust this razor. Tell me where you got the razor from, said the king. Your advisor gave the golden razor to me just a few moments ago. The king looked at the walls of his palace. Shave me with the old wooden-handled razor. And the barber did. And as always, the king got a good, clean shave. But when he had finished, the king said, wait, to the barber. Guard, go and fetch my advisor here. And the advisor was brought before the king, and when the advisor came through the door, he looked surprised. You, advisor, I see your beard is growing. You too have need of a shave. No, not I, said the advisor. I have no need. Shave him, he said to the barber, with the golden razor that he provided. And against his will, the advisor was forced into the seat. And the barber began to shave him with the golden blade. And you know that within a few moments, that powerful advisor was dead. The king took the golden razor carefully, a razor poisoned. Thank you, barber. The next day, the king went into the square outside the palace to look for the seller of wisdom. But the seller of wisdom never returned to that city.